We are about ready to start. If I can ask you to settle down, please. Okay, good evening and thank you all for joining us tonight. This is a meeting of Frome Town Council. I'm Andy Jones and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everybody, we have got people online and in the room, so please do use your microphones when you need to speak. For those in the room, the usual little housekeeping. Emergency exit is where it always is, over in that corner. Assembly point at the far end of the car park. Toilets at the end of the corridor, an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. I think you've all been helping yourselves to tea and coffee and things, so we're all set there. Tonight, Peter's going to clerk. Laura, Sarah and Rachel are managing minutes, question board, participant settings and IT stuff generally. The meeting will be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand. And for anyone else on Zoom, please ask any questions through the Q&A board. Slight change to the beginning of the agenda, as we've got the pleasure of Anna Sabine's company this evening, our new MP. So I'd like to hand over to Anna first for her to say a few introductory words. Thank you.
Hi, so I'll stand up so you can see me. Hi to anyone I haven't met personally yet. Really good to be here. I just wanted to come along and say I'm here. I'm very available if you need me. And just to touch on a couple of, well, three probably issues of local interest, where I'm at on them and to take any questions. So firstly, actually on the availability point, I hadn't really clocked that when you become an MP, you're expected to be an MP from day one, but you have no staff and no office and nothing. So I am desperately trying with my currently very small team to keep on top of everything, but do keep sending us emails and we're going to catch up our speed of response, but we are trying to respond to things. So three kind of issues I wanted to mention. One is obviously the current situation with the kind of riots and horrible violence we're seeing around the country. Really, really blessed that we're not actually experiencing that here, but clearly we are in nearby towns and cities like Bristol. I was on a call with the police office minister earlier, and she was really clear that while it's totally understandable that people will want to counter-protest this, and it's totally understandable that we might want to host events to show solidarity with certain communities, they were saying, please, could people just delay this till after this situation's calmed down, because they really need the police to be out dealing with where these situations are flaring up. So I know there was some discussion in Frome about having some kind of protest or thing this weekend, and I think the message would be, please, can we do that after this has calmed down and leave the police to be in the places where they're needed most at the moment. But I'm really touched. I was saying to Steve earlier that I'm on a WhatsApp group with other MPs, and lots of them are getting horrible kind of anti-Islamic emails, and all I have had from Frome and East Somerset is people saying that it's terrible and they hope that I stand with groups like Hope Not Hate, which obviously I do. So that's been really lovely to know that we have a constituency that's so kind of like-minded in that way. That's really nice. Second issue is Saxonvale, obviously. I just want to say that I'm very alive to that, and I will be doing everything I can within my remit as an MP, which has no control over the process, to try and help everyone move that site forward, working with Somerset, working with the town council, working with Mayday, and I met with Mayday today about that. And the third thing is the A36 road closure, which I think lots of people are only just becoming aware of. It's happening from Monday for 7 months. It's closing at Limpley Stoke through to the viaduct. And basically their National Highways diversion suggests that if you're a Frome commuter going to Bath, you'd now like to divert via Chippenham, which I think is highly unlikely anyone's going to do. I think what they're going to do is go via Midsummer Norton or go via Bradford Avon or go through villages like Norton St Philip, Hinton Charterhouse. It's a really massive issue. To my mind, there's been really poor consultation on it. They gave a month's notice, and they said that normally they would give 3 months notice, but because of the election, they couldn't do that. I don't understand what relevance that has in that case. I understand the nature of PERDA, but I don't think that applies under PERDA rules. So I've got a meeting with National Highways really soon, but I think the headline is there's nothing that's going to stop it happening. It's happening from Monday onwards. We're just going to have to be really alive to the impacts and see what can be done once it's up and running. Wonderful people like Peter Travis are doing so much work in the background to try and at least make sure buses can run. And I know there's been some discussion about whether we could just get a bus gate on it and get that happening. Thanks for whoever told me that this evening. So everyone's doing what they can, but I would just advise that it is going to cause massive problems, and we're doing what we can given that National Highways have a remit to do it, and the work does need doing. There's a landslide that's going to happen if it doesn't get done. So it is really important, but I just wish there'd been a bit more discussion about it beforehand. I'm really happy to take questions while I'm here about anything.
Thank you very much, Anna. Does anybody have anything they want to raise with Anna at this point? Anne?
Just to say thank you so much for being here, Anna. It's a long time since we've had our MP in the room.
Yes, indeed.
I'd love to be here all the time because obviously this is the most fun one. But I was saying earlier that I don't actually know how many parish and town councils there are in the constituency, but there are a lot. So I'm going to try and get round to all of them. So I'm sorry if I'm not here as much as I might be, but I am very contactable and I will come whenever anyone sends out the bat signal. It's fine.
Okay, thanks. Steve?
Now, just to add to the A36 issues, found out today that Westbury railway station is going to be closed for potentially up to a month between 24th of December and 24th of January. And the line through Westbury will also be closed. Don't know yet. We're trying to find out. We don't know that it's going to be closed for a whole month. The work starts on the 24th of December, and the work plan is for that whole month. Whether it's going to be closed for the whole month or not, we're not sure. It will probably at least be closed over Christmas, though, and into the new year, and first few days of January. From Frome, yes. Yeah.
I'd be really interested to know whether National Highways knew that or whether any of these agencies talked to each other about the timing of anything. I think we can guess the answer.
We can guess that answer.
I know that work has been planned for a couple of years, but I didn't realise the extent of it until this morning. When I mentioned the A36 closer to the GWR, they were a little bit shocked. Sort of buggers their bus replacement rail service.
Okay. Thank you. Can I take Philip and then Mel?
I'd like to echo Anne's thanks to Anna for coming along this evening, and congratulations. We were talking about the A36 earlier on. Just to let people know that Peter Travis and Somerset Bus Partnership will be having a stall in the middle of town on Saturday to inform as many people as possible and hand out timetables if First Bus have provided them by that time. And thank Anna for all her efforts in this particular issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Mel?
Hi, Anna. As you said, MPs generally don't have a lot of power. And in fact, I've said in other quarters that leaders of councils, not town or parish councils, usually have more influence in terms of, because they've got their hands on some money. Can you just kind of tell us what your game plan is to not get drawn too much into the Houses of Parliament, where things appear to be exciting and interesting, but aren't, and how you would quite like to stay close to local communities and parish and town councils like this?
It sounds like a question you've set up, but we haven't set this up. So I was always really clear that I wanted to be a kind of constituency MP. And when you become an MP, lots of people ask you what kind of MP you want to be. And when you're staffing your office, they ask you to think about how you want to, staff it based on what you want to achieve. In the nicest possible way, as a Lib Dem, I can achieve some things nationally, but probably slightly less than I might if I'd been a Labour MP, for example. So my real interest is what I can do locally. And I'm in terms of my staffing, I've really heavily weighted it towards caseworkers in the constituency. And I'm really keen that my parliamentary staff's brief is about how they can use parliamentary tools to advance the benefit of Frome and East Somerset effectively. The point about power is really interesting because this came up with the Saxonvale thing especially as well. I'm really clear that I should be working within the remit I have to help deliver for local people. So on something like a housing development, I've got no say over it. Okay, I could have whispered conversations in the background, but I don't think that's particularly professional, right? Like what I should be doing is trying to stand above it. And then when a decision's made, work with whoever's chosen to deliver for local people. And I took a lot of flack for that on Saxonvale, and I totally appreciate why I did. But if Acorn had won the bid and carried on, if I had been kind of anti-Acorn beforehand, I think that would have made it much harder for me to work with Acorn going forward. So I'm never going to be like a rabble-rousing politician that says things because they think it's good for headlines. I always want to try and be straight with people people, even if it's slightly more complicated. So I did want to just touch on that while I'm in this forum. But yeah, I've got certain issues that I campaigned on locally. There's certain issues that are coming through really strongly. Road safety, which Anita is going to grab me about at some point, is clearly one of them across the constituency. So I'm going to have a series of issues that I campaign on, and then a heavy casework team to try and help people out locally. But if there's big issues that you think I'm missing, I'm always really happy to engage in them. Yeah, does that kind of answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anna. Okay, in that case, we'll move on to the first item on the original agenda, which is a short presentation from Richard Bowles as Chair of Frome Allotment Association. There's a microphone on the podium here, Richard, if it's easier.
This one, is it?
Yes, it's on now.
That clicks through the slides, does it? Ah. Which way? Right. Okay. We'll see how we go. Right, so after that great introduction, thank you. That was really, really useful. I'm going to bring you down to earth now and talk about allotments. Okay. So I thought, well, better kick off with, well, who's he standing in front of you all? So I'm Richard Bowles. Just a brief bit of background. I've lived in Frome since around about 1996 with my family, my wife Rona, and a daughter and son, both of whom now live out of Frome as it happens. My background is in food and drink, manufacturing, across quality, technical, health and safety, and for the last 15 years or so, majoring on environmental. So I'm semi-retired now, down to 3 days a week, and currently doing project work with Brothers Drinks in Shepton Mallet, that I would hope most people here have heard of. If I said Baby Sham, then you probably all heard of it. And I've had an allotment, just a half plot at Welsh Mill for around about 11 years. It's the very first plot just inside the gate. So if you're passing, say hi. And I took on the chair role of the Frome Allotment Association in March of this year. Okay, so you've given me a little bit of time to think about it before calling me in to account. Okay, so I'm here just to, as I say, to talk about the Allotment Association. There are 8 sites. They're nicely spread across Frome town, so that gives people the opportunity to get plots within reasonable range of where they live, which is useful. As I said myself, I'm on Welsh Mill, which for me, being at the far end of the east end of town, suits me fine. So there are the plots laid out, just showing the shape of the different plots. They vary in size from sort of 5 or 6 plots up to the largest and newest site, I believe, Muriel Jones, which is 110 plots. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, got some support here tonight, by the way. Okay, what's happened there? Oh, I see, yeah. So the structure. First off, I think it's important to say that the whole thing's voluntary. That comes with its own challenges, and we'll see a little bit of that later on. But it is important to always remember it is voluntary across the board. We have an elected committee, which consists of the chair, the vice chair, Kieran Saunders, the secretary, Madeline Richards, and the treasurer, Jerry Gasson. We then have what I call other committee members, which is the site reps. For each of the sites, there are reps, and we'll touch on those in a little bit more detail. And we have somebody who specifically looks after the waiting list. I think it's important to know that the waiting list is managed. It's a large waiting list, as we'll see, but there is some, a specific person there to manage and administer that. Right, this was to test your eyesight. I realise that it's a little bit small print, you can't read any of it. It's really just to say that there are rules, there are set rules, they've been worked on very hard, particularly in the last year, 18 months, to put these rules together. Equally, there is a complaints procedure as well, so that people can escalate if they have an issue or they want to take it further. So just to show some of those specific rules, we've got actually rule number 1, which is that we don't allow more than 1 plot per household. Now, historically, that wasn't the case, but that is gradually being weaned out of the system so that we do get to a situation where it is only 1 plot per household. But historically, you can't just suddenly evict somebody because you've changed, well, not changed the rules, but the rules have been amended. So that will take us a little while to work through, but there really are very few left now. On all 8 sites, there's very, very few left. Obviously, it's about the tenants shall keep their allotment tidy. It's a good start. Free from weeds and cultivated. And we do say predominantly fruit and vegetables. Appreciate a lot of people want to grow wildflowers and so on, but there's a thin line between going totally wilding and having a productive plot. Bearing in mind, again, your waiting list, and a lot of people genuinely want to get on there and grow a lot of produce. And also they must tend to their plot around the edges and so on. Frome Town Council would recognise that obviously they're the owners of the site and they are entitled to inspect at any time. I get a lot of visitors after this. Repossession, well, clearly Frome Town Council are able to do that if they so wish, plot by plot. And this could be for any purpose. It might be some sort of statutory provision. Suddenly they want the land or need the land. Then you're the owners, you have the right to take it back on again. For building or mining or any other industrial purpose. So if I find any gold in my plot, you're not having it. Okay, so the association itself, the administration and the funding of it. There's a committee, as I said earlier, there's the elected part of the committee and there are the site reps. We meet every quarter and in March is our AGM. There's a current waiting list of around about 350 people, and that typically means a 4-year wait. Okay. There's a balance, quite a healthy balance. It's around about 16,000, 16 to 17,000, and that's held there because there are inevitably projects and developments that need to happen on the sites. So we have a pool of money that we can, as a committee, decide the best way in which to spend that to enhance the site or whatever we may need to do. The charge at the moment is, on average, is £25 a year for a plot. Okay, that is low. Let me tell you, that is low for plots now. There's no point in comparing it to London or Greater London, but even comparing it within this area to Bath and Peasdown and so on, plots are a lot more expensive than ours. So this is something that's currently under review, and I'll touch on it in a minute too. Welsh mill plotters actually play a supplement on top of that, because 2-3 years ago we installed mains water into the site. Previously it was all drawn from the river on a hand pump that very rarely worked. So it's now got mains water in there. That came at a cost. And obviously there's a water bill every year, so that comes down to them. And also there are some contracts running with Busy Bees, and these again are subject to review, as we look at the prices of the plots, so we're going to have to build in, or look at building in, some extra costs to cover some of this contract work. There are people, you know, we do rely on volunteers a lot, and as time goes on, it does get increasingly difficult to find people who will commit to helping out, whether it be with mowing or general maintenance. The case of Welsh Mill last year, we had several incidents of people climbing through the fence and over the fence and breaking the fences, and we've done that all and repaired it all ourselves, but it takes time and it takes a willingness. So, sorry, come back now. So the day-to-day management of the site, the running of them, is mostly down to site reps. They'll meet and greet new people coming onto the plot. They'll sort out inquiries, comments, feedback, moans and groans, and such things as that happen day on day. Sorry? And positives, yes. Importantly, they'll carry out routine inspections of the plots. To keep the plots in order, and you know, some people do drift away for whatever reason. They don't tell you, or they may genuinely have gone very ill, or they may have had a bereavement or whatever. The plot starts to die back, and the last thing on their mind is to talk to their site rep about it. So they will inspect plots, and if necessary, they will get early warnings, and it will be taken through to a final, and then eviction from the plot if necessary. Obviously, they attend the committee meetings, and because there's a structure there, quite properly there's a structure, issues and so on will get escalated and can get escalated to the chair, who's the ultimate arbiter on that one. The waiting list coordinator maintains the waiting list and is the point of contact when plots become available. I think we're just going through that process now, aren't you, with three new people. Yeah. Right. Okay, so it's good news. It's moving things on. Site maintenance. Well, the town council rangers really helpful with larger jobs. What I've put on this one is just to show up at this is a Cranmore View site. There's the before picture, and then there's the after picture. So you can see they help cutting the hedge. Most importantly, they put a really good path in alongside the plots. Good job done. I mean, I've only just started talking with Rob. Hopefully we can build on that. And all I know is I came in, and the history was the Rangers do a really, really good job, and always have done. So that's really good. I said earlier about volunteers. Well, recruiting volunteers for general site maintenance is really, really difficult. At Welsh Mill, we do get by. Some of the other sites, they get by because they're smaller as well. But Muriel Jones' new site really does find it difficult to get people stepping up actively to be, you know, to help maintain the sites. So in terms of the community activities, at Welsh Mill, we've got various plots allocated, one to Vallis School, we've got one to the Women's Shed and to Frog Life. And in addition, Zach, who runs Frog Life, he comes in once a week and does a session with elderly people who've got starting to get dementia and so on, which is really, you know, really encouraging, and it's great. He takes them around the plot and they do all sorts of activities and so on. for a few hours, which is good. Up on North Hill, which is at the top of the North Parade, obviously, then there's some engagement there with the gardening club at Frome College. So there's some interaction there. Muriel Jones this year took part in Hidden Gardens. Bit of a long way out of town, really, aren't you? So, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. So it does have that, yeah. Yeah, and it may be in another year's just a bit more publicity or something that might help. I don't know. Or you know, hire out bikes so people can ride out there. So yes, and from a diversity really point of view, there are raised beds at the two largest sites. Sorry, there are raised beds. So. For people who struggling and with movements and so on, just to make life a bit easier for them. Oh, we got to the end. Was I talking too quick? Probably was. This is just a couple of thoughts, really. I was talking with Fiona the other day, and she mentioned about the agreement that's in place. Rob and I have subsequently talked about it, and I think that with time we can work on that and develop that, so that we got a bit more robust agreement with what the Rangers do in particular, and Frome Town Council's exact position on it all. Yeah. And another idea afloat out there is whether you think there's any value in having a very short report done maybe annually. Just the highlights of what's gone on, and you know, the association still exists and so on. Yeah, just to remind you. Yeah, I don't know. It's just an idea.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. I think I saw Nick first, and then Fiona. On Anne.
Okay, I'd like to say thank you for the food sustainability aspect of having allotments in the town and food security. And I volunteer at the pantry, and we get some of the surplus there, and that's really good. I love that tie up between the pantry and the allotments. So please, can that continue?
Yes, and the site rep at Welsh Mill has just recently put another email out about that. And getting produce down here. I brought some down myself the other week. So yes, that is something very active. You got a little bit of competition from Welsh Mill because Rossetti House also like the produce.
Can I just say something on that specifically? Because I did try to sort of coordinate this a bit more last year and try and do a bit more of a push for it. And there was some success, I think, but it is just really difficult, I think, especially because it's a Tuesday and a lot of the people, especially at Mill Jones, do work, so it's just been quite difficult. But there's always been lots of ideas about like having baskets by the gate, and everyone could leave in, and it's just never really sort of, we've never managed to get it off like properly working. But yeah, it's good that that it's still sort of being spread around, that it's an option.
Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Richard, thanks very much for coming tonight and giving us this presentation. It's really interesting to catch up on what's been happening. I'm a big fan of allotments. I think they're brilliant. I love the fact that we've got so many in the town. But we also have a situation where there are 350 people on the waiting list. So a huge demand for something which is less than 50p a week. And it seems to me that if you have something that's in high demand, and I guess the people who are deciding what the charges are members of the committee who all have allotments. Seems to me kind of a bit like that overused expression, turkeys voting for Christmas. And I think there could be some real opportunities in perhaps looking at making it a price that's more reflective of opportunity. And one of the reasons I say that is, as you will know, there's a financial crisis in Somerset, and that has implications on our staff. So the opportunity costs of rangers coming out to work on allotments means they can't do other work, and we will undoubtedly be calling on the rangers to do other work in the town. So I think it would be really useful to consider how you might increase the subscriptions or the costs of the allotment, and that would allow you potentially to pay someone to do some of the work that's currently done by rangers. So I think that would be something I would personally think would be quite a useful thing to do. Got a few points, and then I'll shut up or come back if you've got some points. The issue is about the allocation. You mentioned there are a number of households that have more than one plot. I know that because I know people who've got them, and I wonder, do you know how many there are at the moment?
I don't know exactly, but from what I've heard of the different sites, Elaine, can you say for Muriel Jones?
Am I right? Yeah, I can say that we have 3 households that have two plots each, and that is historical from the beginning of the site. And we've had 1 household recently left. They've moved up north, and so that's released 2 plots for 2 new plot holders. So we are very actively, making that happen. So it's not out of 110 plots, and some of those plots are actually half plots as well. So we've actually got more than 110 on the Muriel Jones side. So, it's a very, very small inherited problem. We also have a number of plots where people involve their friends and family to work on 1 plot. So, and in the Muriel Jones site, it is a very sort of community spirited site where, people invite their friends to come down and do work with them on the site. So, and I think you're fully aware of that. So, we're actually making access informally. There's access to a lot more people than those on site. In terms of the waiting list, we've just started a questionnaire that is administered to people when the names come to me, because I deal with the waiting list at Muriel Jones. They need to answer a questionnaire that helps them reflect on whether this is really the right thing for them, given they've waited 4 years. A lot of things change in people's lives, because we've been finding that we're having people come new onto the site who aren't really prepared.
Can well imagine.
I think it's fair to say I don't think there's a huge number, Nick, like that. And as Lane says, we're actively,
Sure.
figuring that out.
I know you'll know the detail. I know you know the detail, but I wondered, are you waiting for people to say, I'm going to give up, or are you saying, right, you've got 2 to your household, you need to give up 1 tomorrow? The other issue is, and please accept, I do know how valuable they are, and it's about trying to get more people to get onto them, is when you decide allocation, is there a factor within that says, okay, you're an applicant for an allotment and you would love to have an allotment, but you've already got a garden at home, versus someone who lives in a flat and doesn't have a garden? Is there any kind of process that...
There isn't anything, a process like that at the moment, no, and I think that would prove really quite difficult and really quite difficult to administer in terms of, some people have got gardens, very active gardeners, also want to plot, and they want to grow produce, they maybe want their garden for their leisure activities and their flower garden, and they want to have access to a plot. To then say, well, sorry, you can't have, you've got to dig up half your garden and make that into an allotment plot. It just becomes, I think, a bit of a delicate area, if I'm...
A delicate, certainly. delicate, certainly, but there's an element of fairness, isn't there, and issue around allowing people who don't have that opportunity. But look, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Can I contribute two more?
Sorry, I've got a number of people waiting to ask questions. If you don't mind just hanging on a moment, well, we'll come to you at the end. But Mel.
Okay, I think I'm probably the only person left in the room from when the association was set up, and we wanted to make sure that the allotment association was able to run these allotments on their own, and that actually the council didn't get involved. And I think that was a really good decision, because I've seen too many parish and town councils where the allotment association becomes the be-all and end-all of the whole organisation. And you've done a good job, there's no doubt about that. But when you come to do this renewal of contract, I'm not convinced that the rangers should be doing work, certainly without it being identified, and maybe he's given a sum of money that we'll allow every year. I have an allotment myself, only 4 or 5 miles away, and it's considerably more than £25 a year, £40 a year. So if that was taken up, then you could probably afford to do a lot of the work yourselves, and not use the rangers who are going to be under a lot of pressure sometime in the future. So it might sound a bit like sour grapes, but I think that's the right way forward.
We've had a couple of comments about the rangers. Maybe I can ask Rob to come in now, then I'll take Fiona, and then you, Madam, and then we'll try and wrap it up.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you, Richard. Really good presentation. Couple of things. Well, firstly, also, I'd just like to say thank you to your predecessor as well, Philip, who I had a really good working, the Rangers and myself had a really good working relationship with, and that was really productive. I just wanted to comment on what Mel and Nick had raised about Ranger time. So the agreement between Frome Town Council and the Allotment Association is that we basically get involved on the boundaries and the access track. We do not get involved with any individual allotments or the ground between the allotments. So there's no ranger time on the individual allotments. So I just wanted to clarify that point. The number of projects that we do get involved with is quite limited. I just wanted to pick up on what you said, Mel, that I think the Allotment Association does an absolutely fantastic job in enabling the running of the association, and it doesn't mar us in difficulties. So the principle that we've used is if we can enable the Allotment Association to thrive with a little bit of expertise, specialist equipment, then everyone's a winner. So that's been the principle that we've used. It hasn't eaten up a lot of range time.
Thanks, Rob. Fiona.
I just want to say a few things. So first of all, thank you very much for coming, Richard, and thank you. And I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers that are involved in the Allotment Association and the site reps like Elaine on all the different sites. Like, it's actually a lot of people and a lot of people who put a lot of time in, and it is sometimes very thankless. I was a site rep for about a year and then I gave up because I needed it to be my nice calm place away from here, and it was becoming not that. So I just want to say thank you, and Richard, for stepping in, and also to echo that I don't think there is a lot of ranger time involved. The Rangers did an amazing job at Muir Jones in terms of, we got some volunteers together and they helped us lay a hedge down the side, which was a beautiful project, and we all learned how to hedge lay. And it's that kind of thing where they've got the sort of the machinery that would cost the Allotment Association a lot of money to rent, etc. Having said that, I am also in agreement, even though it's a turkey vote for Christmas, to put the price up as well. I also just want to say, because I just love the fact that there's this photo on the front here, which is of Muir Jones Allotments and of Andy, who he's got like the first plot as you come in. I think he was one of the first plot holders at Muir Jones. He helped set it all up. And when I got my plot, I didn't know anything about growing vegetables, and most of my first year produce all was leftovers from him. And he would just give me all his like seed potatoes he didn't need and his plants. There is no way that we would ever have crossed paths in any other place in Frome. We have very different opinions on things, I think it's fair to say. Politically, we are, whenever it touches on that, and that is what I just love about allotments, is that I find it hard to think of any other place in Frome where you get such a wide variety of people coming together. And during COVID, I lived on my own, and honestly, if it hadn't been for the Allotment Association and those little 5-minute conversations across the plots, it would have been very, very difficult. And we need more allotments. 350. I get all the points about it, you know, that I think the allotments are managed really well. We have been halving some plots at Mule Jones to make more space, and there is demand here, and we need more allotments. And I think that's just something to bear in mind. That's the only way the allotment waiting list is going to get down.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience, if I can ask you to come in now.
The first thing I just want to respond to the idea that we would, as an allotment association, resist putting the price up. Far from it. And well, certainly within the reps group at Muriel Jones, we are keen to get that price up. We want to keep busy bees doing the work, not the rangers.
Doing a good job,
Yeah,
busy bees, aren't they?
they're very good company to have as contractors. So we're just waiting for Chair and the committee to give the nod.
So it's on the agenda for September.
And we
right
will
there.
have,
Yeah,
you know, we will have
Right there.
complaints, almost certainly.
you will. But
We'll have complaints, we'll deal with it. You know, we can justify, I have no qualms about justifying that we haven't put the price up for 10 years. You know, the rent hasn't gone up for 10 years. So that, if that helps to satisfy that. The other thing is that from experience as a rep, the people who struggle the most, unfortunately, seem to be the ones without gardens at home. It's sad, and we try to help them to, you know, improve their gardening skills, but life's too busy, too difficult, which brings me to my suggestion, which I haven't even raised with Rob yet, but Fiona it'll come as no surprise to Fiona, that I think there are a number of people on the waiting list who really would be better suited to community garden, where they're going to have the support and guidance and the ready-made friendships
Yeah,
that
that's an
they might
interesting
not
thought.
get quite
Thank
so
you.
easily in the allotment.
just one final point on the waiting list. Sorry, Andy. Just one final point there. I think that it's difficult to know exactly how to do it or whatever, but you've got a waiting list of 350 people. How do we not know that 50 on there have moved, died, or whatever? The last thing they're going to do is inform the association. So, you know, we are talking a little bit nebulous there, but that's a difficult one to tackle.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap that topic up there. Thank you very much
All
for
right.
coming down this
welcome.
evening. It's been very helpful.
Thank you.
Obviously, as I say to all our guests, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the proceedings, but you're equally welcome to leave if you need to break out. That's fine. Okay, I'll move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is apologies for interest, declaration of councillors' interests. First of all, do we have any apologies?
From Carla and Lisa.
Okay, can I have, I can see Fiona's already waving her card to propose that we accept those. I think Anne was the second. All those in favour, and I'll just find my orange bit of paper. I think
It's unanimous.
that's unanimous. Thank you. And do any of the councillors present have any interest to declare in any of the topics we're discussing? No? Okay. Then we've got 2 sets of minutes to approve because we weren't quorate at the last meeting. First of all, did anybody have any questions they wanted to raise on any of those minutes? If not, I'll ask for a proposer that we accept them. I've got Sarah proposing, Phil seconding.
Unanimous.
That's unanimous as well. Thank you all very much. That gives me plenty of pieces of paper to sign later. Thank you. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is questions and comments from the public and from councillors. I can see a couple of members of the public already geared up, ready. So, Jill, let's take yours first, and then come on to Lenk.
Yeah, well, I know you're probably sick, sore and weary of this particular Greenbelt area on the in Henley Way. Yesterday, at very short notice, Mark was able to be with the contractor who came and spent 2 hours on clearing this small piece of land. It really does look a mess. It needs total attention. And according to IPM Facilities and Landscape Maintenance, who are based in Hampshire, they are commissioned to keep that site tidy from April to September. Nobody came until June, and Gavin came yesterday. So June and July was missed. This is the August one, and he said he would be here in September. It is not satisfactory. I'm like a dog with a bone. It means a lot to me. Probably doesn't mean anything much to the councillors here, but it means a lot to me and the residents on that Singers site. I have also been on the phone again to IPM Facilities today, and next week I have got an administrator coming down, and his name is Jason Bartlett, and he's informing me on possibly Monday, hopefully Monday, and he's ordering, he said Gavin has to jump when I call, so Gavin is going to come back. Gavin is a Welsh chap and he's based in Cardiff, but he goes all over the place to do this maintenance. I haven't been in touch with Greenbelt. I was advised quite not to until the IPM people have been. But this ownership up in Glasgow, the contractors who do the maintenance based in Hampshire, trying to look after all these pokey little bits of land, because it's only a pokey bit of land, but it's a sheer disgrace and it needs proper looking after. And if Mark hopefully is available next week and I can call on him, can I, Mark? Mark. And it's good to see Rob here because he knows the area I'm talking about as well. And anyway, just that's finished, that little incident. I'm going back to the Foundry Barton open space where the gated area where the silver birch trees are. I was just hoping whether it was on the rangers list to come and cut back all the overgrown grass. I mean, the seeds have all dropped now, and hopefully they'll be up to tidy that area up. Also, there's a street light at the top of the small flight of stairs leading up from Waterloo. It was working when we first moved up there, but is now faulty and does not work. I mean, I have mentioned it before to Sarah, and I think hopefully she will push it a bit. Underneath the gantry, there's pebbles, and underneath that is a matting to prevent weeds. Well, that doesn't work anymore. Weeds grow profusely, and I was wondering if we could have a discussion with Frome Town Council whether we could change that situation, because the weeds are coming through and we haven't got access to it, and we wait for the rangers to come with their little, Tony comes with her little motley crew to come and tidy up. I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like you're getting the sort of contacts and support you need from the team, Jill, when you call on them.
Right, shall I just add, very happy to come, well, I say we, obviously the rangers who do the actual work, I'm sure we'll be very happy to come and cut the grass where you're talking about and have any conversations about weeds.
Yeah, because there's some litter in there.
Yeah, very happy to do that.
Okay. As and when. Thank you. Lenka.
Hi, yeah. So firstly, I'd like to thank Paul Wynne for the last town council meeting. Obviously, I spoke about the football club and raised that issue of the CBS, and it's on the agenda tonight. So thank you to Peter. I would just like to add that since that meeting, I've heard nothing. But also to add that other community users have been affected. So the pod has been affected, their bookings. The proposed youth club by Purple Elephant, their agreement has been changed. And canteen, that was going to be a new pop-up thing at the football club, that's also been changed. And Frome Independent Market have also been affected. So I just wanted to add that to that item. Also, so from a Fair Frome perspective, thank you to Dawn for flagging this. Had also seen it on Facebook. I don't know if people are aware that Somerset Council have put out a survey, consultation regarding council tax reductions. So this is really important and people need to be aware of this and they need to do the survey because it's going to affect a lot of people. So if reductions go from 100% to down to 75% is one of the proposed changes. That affects 32,000 people across the county that currently receive reductions. So I don't know how many that will be for Frome, but once again, it will be us, Fair Frome, other people, Frome Town Council, picking up the pieces. I know that Somerset Council probably can't do anything about it and they have to make cuts, but just flagging that up. Thirdly, this has nothing to do with Fair Frome, but different hat. Just to flag up that obviously multicultural Frome and to people about ARC. So Frome's anti-racist group, we started in 2021 and we did some work with schools and that kind of thing. We're an informal group of volunteers. So we, as Anna mentioned, there was, people wanted to do some sort of protest on Saturday, but we've pushed back and said to people, we're advising you not to do anything like that because it's just really antagonistic. So they have cancelled that. What we're saying is we want people to be supported, signposted to our group, we will start planning things like we want to focus on education and how people can address language and behaviour in our town in a positive way and to support all the new people that are arriving at the moment.
Okay.
Okay.
That's really
right. Thanks very much.
Peter, do you want to come in on the CBS?
Thanks for highlighting those things. I'm sorry to hear that you haven't heard back from the CBS. Certainly we encourage them to respond, but I'm meeting with the Secretary and Treasurer of the CBS tomorrow. I will certainly highlight those things that you highlighted. I'm also aware that Andrew Carpenter, who's the chair of the CBS, has agreed to come to the next council meeting and present, so that will be an opportunity to ask questions at that point. Just one other point, which is regarding the independent market. They were unable to operate their park and ride operation from the car park at the football ground last weekend because basically there was a women's football match on and they obviously needed the car park to service that match. But I know that from correspondence that I've seen, that there's a preparedness to make the car park available when it's not needed for other events. So I know that the CBS are in liaison with Holly from the Frome Independent Market to try and maximise the number of times through the year when the football ground car park can be used as a park and ride site. So that's the situation on that one.
Thanks. I know, Fiona, you want to come back?
Yeah, I just want to say I was also going to mention about the council tax reduction survey that's gone out. I actually thought Somerset Council produced a consultation before Christmas, I think, initially around their sort of financial situation. I thought it was really well done. It was really clear. It took you on a journey. There was loads of information, and it's sort of, it was sort of nuanced, and it made you. I got to the end of it, and I thought I really understand their situation. I feel like I've had an informed say. I think this consultation's really poor. I'm going to be honest. I am obviously fairly clued up as a member of the public about these things, and I couldn't there was a table I didn't know what I was looking at. I couldn't understand it. The questions are really bad. It's not, I think it's, and I think that's one thing, is I just don't think it's a particularly good consultation. I don't think it's clear, especially given sort of the people who this will be directly affecting. I think more effort needs to be put into making it really, clear and accessible. I also, I was really upset to see it, I'm going to be honest. I think this is going to impact the people who need it the most. I mean, I live alone. I get the 25%, which, to be honest, I think that's unfair. I think it should be 50%. It's already difficult. The thought of that going down to 10% actually makes me feel sick, especially given how much Somerset Council are going to be raising it. I also think we have a housing crisis in Frome, which means that there's a lot of people here living in housing that is maybe not perfectly suited to their needs. So maybe they are living in a house that is too big for them, but there isn't the smaller housing to go down to, which I think really needs to be taken into account as well. And I will say there's, the last census says 30% of people in Frome are single occupancy. I think that might be single adult with dependents, but I think, so it is going to affect a lot of people in Frome, and I think it's just targeting completely the wrong people. And I just want to say that obviously as a council, our precept goes through their rules, basically, isn't it? So are we a statutory consultee on this? Do we get any sort of say? Because I feel really uncomfortable with, I'm going to be honest, if they do decide, it will be our council tax that we're setting is going to be subject to the Somerset Council rules. So I don't mean to look at you, Dawn, but it's Somerset Council, like more broadly than just you, just because you're in my eye line. And and can we look into that? Because it's...
We'll certainly look into that, and we'll make sure you've got an answer on that one.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Were there any other members of the public wanted to say anything?
Hello there. A question. When I first moved to Frome, it'd be 8 years ago, one of the things that so impressed me about this town was the community fridge in the middle of town, which is no longer there. The other thing which really impressed me, I thought it was amazing, the share shop. It was brilliant. You could borrow things for very minimal amounts of money. Now, both of these facilities were easily accessible, and they were aimed at people who didn't have much money. Both of those easy to access facilities have gone. Now, I've got a question for you, but I've also got a challenge for you. What are you, the town council, going to do about this? What are you going to do to put these fine facilities for people who haven't got lots of money, who are either struggling for things like power tools to do their own DIY? I mean, I understand there are issues of money, but I also believe that sorting these issues out isn't only a matter of money, it's a matter of will. And I want to hear from you, the councillors, tonight. I want to hear what you're going to do to put this right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Rob, did you want to pick up on the community fridge?
Thank you for that. Just on the community fridge, the building itself had problems. It was owned and managed by Somerset Council. There were problems with it being, well, there were rats in there, and it just wasn't viable to continue with it as it was. After quite a protracted period of negotiation, we are now taking that on. Frome Town Council is taking the lease on, not the freehold, but the lease. And with a view, fairly soon, we have sorted the sewer problem. Underneath, they're all capped. There's no rats in the area. And fairly soon, the community fridge is coming back. We've been striving really hard to get the community fridge back. There's obviously other community fridge touch points, one here at the town hall, but that's been something we've been striving very hard to move forwards. It's taken a long time for various reasons, but it is, just to reassure you, definitely moving forwards.
Thank you.
Others might have more to say, I don't know.
Lenka, did you want to come in on that one? No? Okay.
In answer to the share shop, it hasn't gone. We're in hibernation. I'm one of the trustees, as is Andy. Lloyds Bank, who own the building, want it back because they're going to sell it because Halifax Bank of Scotland, part of the Lloyds Bank Group, they're selling the whole unit. So we have benefited from the last 9 years of zero rent. So we have used that building very beneficially to the town, but we need a new premises. So we're moving into hibernation, moving into storage. We haven't folded. We're still in existence, but we just can't operate until we've found a new premises.
And probably worth commenting that actually the whole economic model of the share shop is quite difficult if you've got to pay for town centre shop premises to run it from. Sorry, Fiona, I've got Tracy behind you first.
Maybe someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a community fridge at the back of the town hall, which was where it was moved to. I'm not sure absolutely of the opening hours, but it's allowed a little bit more for people to oversee in case of vandalism and also check on cleanliness and things more often. But the community fridge is there if you want to spread that word to others who are still looking to pick up food.
Yeah.
And there's one. Sorry,
I also just want to say what we as council is doing. Well, say Nick was actually really integral in getting funding for the community fridge to continue and off his own back. So I just want to say that there has been a lot of energy and effort put into finding funding, significant amount of funding to get it to continue. And they're also looking at one in Frome College as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Lenka?
Yeah, I'm not a town councillor, but I just wanted to say that actually the Frome Town Council do an amazing job to support I run Fair Frome, and town councillors really support us. And Frome is actually exceptional in its support for people that are struggling, much more so than any other towns around here. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else asking. Yeah, they support Fair Frome and they fund Fair Frome, partly give some money to Fair Frome. There's also 190 other charities and organisations in Frome that have to raise funding. So there's actually a lot of support for people that are struggling. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but thank you.
Thanks for that support. Okay.
Well,
yeah, of course.
If I go first, and then he can.
Yeah, please, Mel.
All right. Actually, thanks for coming, because actually I think what you've said is a fair challenge to us. The only reason we're not doing anything is that we have other priorities, some of which I'm not convinced are as important as this. So we've lost some of our practicality, we've lost some of our, let's do it for the people that you're talking about who've got less resources. And actually, if we wanted to, we could drop some other things and we could do this. But we need a political will and an administrative will to actually make it happen, because it will cost some money. But I think we should be doing it. I think what you've described defines the town, and without it, we're poorer in all senses. So perhaps stop doing some surveys about asking people what they want and what they don't want, and just bloody well get on with doing something.
Okay.
I just want to say, you know, I was aware that there are multiple locations for the community fridge, which is great. I only became aware that there were problems with the share shop when, you know, being super selfish here, I wanted to borrow a piece of equipment. And I saw on the website, it says in hibernation or whatever. But that's great, you know, that it's not closed. But it is closed because I couldn't borrow a drill. Now, how many more people like myself are out there who want to borrow power tools, who haven't got the means and they haven't got the wherewithal to get these items? So I just want to really invite you to think about hibernation. So what? That's what a hedgehog does in winter. Surely there should be a firm idea and a target of when it's going to reopen and when this valuable resource is going to be there for many of the people who can't afford and don't have power tools, and they don't have tents over the summer when they can take their kids to the beach and all the rest of it. And what I would like to see is some sort of target of by XYZ date, we will make this happen. That's really what I'd like to see. Thank you.
It's not really a parish council statutory obligation, is it? But, and by the way, well, fair frame, we lucky, we have a handyman, so we have lots of volunteers that volunteer their time, and the handyman does stuff for people like that you're talking about. So we do help in that way.
Yeah, I mean, Lenka, I'm just addressing the councillors and I'm just asking.
But
Excuse me, Lenka, please let me finish. All I'm asking is that the shop is open so people can borrow power tools. That's all I'm asking.
we're an independent charity. We're an independent charity. So with my chair of trustees hat on of the share shop, thank you for your support, but it's not the job of the council, it's the job of us as a charity to get up and running again. We can ask for support from the council, but the council can't get us up and running again. We're a charity separate from the council.
It's a matter of priorities for the town. Please let me finish, please. It's a matter of priorities for the town.
And I think we have heard that it's very high on your list of priorities. And we're also listening to other people in the town to establish what are their priorities so that we make sure as a council we move forward in the way that the vast majority of our residents want us to move forward. So thank you for your contribution to that debate. Okay, sorry, Mel.
Not satisfied the way that that's ended. Actually, I'd quite like a report to the next council that says, this is where we are, and this is where the charity is, and this is the situation they're in. This is where the community fridge is, because we've been waiting for it to go back down to the town centre for several years now. So I'd like to see something that's on this agenda that says, this is the situation, this is what it could be like, and this is how much it might cost. From there, we can make a decision.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got that noted. Okay, just moving forward, I did want to thank Dawn Denton for having circulated her report. Dawn, did you have anything you wanted to highlight before I ask anybody for questions on that?
Yeah, thank you. There's a historic question. I think historically, councils, the only role they had was to look after an allotment. I think that was their only legal, their only legal. So yeah, it's really an important part of the community. Yeah, so just a reminder, I know the Frome Field Road, sorry, I've got Fair Frome in my head, the Frome Field Road, I'm so pleased that it finally is going to be done coming into Frome. So 24th of October to the 14th of November, that road will be closed, but at least it'll be repaired. Yeah, for the council tax, as Lenk has mentioned, that is going to be a concern for a lot of people. And the council is hoping that that slashing will raise 6.4 million. So that's kind of towards their 100 million hole. And then the tree works, I think Philip will know about that. The tree work for the diversion of the D2 for the closing of the A36 was done today and will be finished tomorrow. So the 2 days, and then the bus will be able to run effectively from the time that the diversion has to come in for the closure from the 12th of August. There were some legal issues that they were going to take 3 months to complete to ensure that they could close that road for the A36. And those came through a lot quicker than they thought, and that's why they rapidly moved for the 1 month. I agree that the consultation was not long enough, but I do understand that if we don't close that road like tomorrow, it'll be having to be closed for much longer and a lot more expensive. And I also know that there's a real struggle with Norton St Philip and Hinton Charterhouse for the rat race that they're going to have, but they're hoping to put in some more signage and also to ensure that we've got no buses that are having to mount pavements and things to pass each other, which is going to be a real problem. They're also filming in Norton St Philip at the beginning of September, so that's going to make it even worse to get through there because they're closing the high street and they're filming at the George. And
of course, then the Westbury closure. I've actually just asked someone in Wiltshire if they could send me an update on the Wiltshire station, so the Westbury station. And then I think that was all that I wanted to mention, I think. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks. Nick, you'd got a question?
Yeah, first of all, thank you again, Dawn, for that report you send out every month. It's really useful, and thank you for the work you've managed to get done in Fromefield. Now, Ben and I have persuaded the leader of Frome Town Council to adopt a bicycle. He'll notice the state of the roads for cyclists. Fromefield is one of those that's really unpleasant. I've reported 6 times the top of Bath Street, the sort of roundabout. There is very deep cracks in the road there. Our independent bike shop in town has 160 members, and nearly always, unfortunately, route out of there is up that bloody hill and then onwards. It's really dangerous. You can get a wheel trapped in there and somebody will have a serious accident. I'd be grateful if I've raised it to highways, raised it through Fix My Street, if you wouldn't mind asking. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Any questions from other councillors want to be aired tonight? Okay, I think then we can move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is, I think, being led by Max. Thank you, Max. Microphone's on.
So thank you. What I'm here to talk to you about very briefly is what is in the jargon called asset and service devolution. It's good, isn't it? Very thrilling. So these are essentially lots of assets and powers and responsibilities and budgets held by Somerset Council that, as part of the deal to become a new unitary council, they were talking about devolving potentially to us. So I just want to kind of say where we are with all of that. Fans of box sets will know that when you look at a box set, there are kind of building episodes and there are action episodes. This is a building episode I'm about to give you tonight, rather than an action episode. Sadly, all of the action has been elsewhere. Deals have been done in Bridgewater, in Wells, and in Yeovil to devolve assets from Somerset Council as part of a town deal. So we have slipped slightly behind the curve, to be quite honest, with where we are with this, and we need to kind of pick up speed again. Most of those deals, I mean, the Bridgewater deal is huge. It's worth millions of pounds. They have upped their precepts by 139% in order to be able to take on an awful lot of extra responsibility. We have put our precepts up, if you recall, by 39% in anticipation of some of the things that we will take on. Much of what the other deals have taken on is really I guess what you'd call the kind of low-hanging fruit that was in the Bill Revens letter, the part of the avoiding bankruptcy fire sale that Somerset announced some months ago. So much of that has been really kind of based on just taking some of those things and taking responsibility for some of those things. We want to do something slightly different. We want to do something slightly more ambitious. People who have been following this saga, this box set saga, will know that we appointed a group of people called activists to write a report for us. And they have come back now with that report, and it's in 2 elements, really. So one is advice for us on our negotiating position in relation to Somerset Council. And for obvious reasons, that is unlikely ever to see the light of day, because it would then reveal what our negotiating position might be. So it's a kind of private advisory document, really, for the council officers and council politicians. But they've also produced the beginnings of what we're calling a prospectus. In other words, it's a view of the kinds of things that we might want to do and the kinds of assets that we might want to take on from Somerset Council and, of course, its the former Mendip Council. So what we're engaged in now is really trying to develop that prospectus. So it's like what activists did for us was to produce a good start, but we don't think it's the full thing. We don't think it's the real deal. So we're now kind of engaging with councillors in the initial phase to try and flesh that out and try and talk about some of the kinds of things that we might be willing to take on. But it isn't simply about taking things on. It's also about kind of trying to create a more expansive vision for the town. So
What we're going to try and go for is to try and articulate a long-term position, almost like a 10-year position that kind of says, here's the place we want to kind of get to, and then try and incorporate certain assets which are on the table now as the first phase of that deal. So there are various headings that we're using to do that. So a thriving town is one of them. So we want this to be a place that thrives and that people can thrive in. The first part of that then, potentially, and this is all subject to due diligence and negotiation, but are to do things like the Frome Riverside project, so to take ownership of both sides of the river rather than just one side of the river as it is currently. Probably not to take over the library, but to have a much greater say over what goes on in the library and to use that as a much more diverse community asset. The freehold of the cheese and grain, because we understand if they own the freehold, then there are all sorts of things they can do, which they can't do as a leaseholder. We are not unrealistic in thinking that we can take over the car park, because that is a massive revenue generator for Somerset Council. However, we would like greater say over the way in which that car park is used, so to guarantee the revenue, but to have more control over the way it's used. We would like to take over markets. It's really interesting, in the Bridgewater deal, they have assumed specific responsibility for tourism and for economic development in a way that which is currently we don't really have. So all of these kind of levers, in a sense, are things that could make the town a more thriving place. And there are probably some other things as well that we might take over or try and influence. There is a piece of legislation which can compel landlords who are holding empty properties in town centres to lease them. And that's a power that sits with county council, but we would love to be the agents for the use of that power. So there's a whole bunch of thinking that I think we need to do in order to be able to articulate a much longer term vision, not just to take what's in the Bill Revans letter and go, yes, that, and no, not that, but to really articulate a longer term vision and think about, very imaginatively, about some of the things that we might therefore ask for and develop ourselves. Second, so thriving town is one. An inclusive and helpful town, I think, is another element. And we've heard a lot of debate tonight about some of the very pointed needs, if you like, that people have and that have become much more acute in recent years. So it would be good to understand what the early help budgets are that Somerset currently administer, because they're very often administered centrally rather than held locally, and it would be good to understand all of that and understand how those might be used better. It would be really good for us to understand what some of the gaps are in early help in the town. Our sense is that there are some sections of the population that serve quite well and other sections of the population not served well at all. Young people and mental health, for example, is a big issue, and various other issues which are emerging. So to have much better control over those budgets and that responsibility, and to work with Somerset much more closely around the data sets they hold in relation to the town, all of those things would be very useful. It also potentially gives us the chance not just to pull in assets and services from Somerset, but also to think about what are some of the funding sources potentially that we can pull into the town. And Green and Healthy Frome is a really good example of being able to leverage in money to the town that it wouldn't be available to a county council. And so there are other areas where we can really go and try and develop that kind of approach. And then the third area that we're really talking about is a sustainable and resilient town. And it was really interesting hearing you talking about the pokey pieces of land earlier on. So there is a possibility that we might own about 600 more pokey pieces of land. So under Mark Dorrington's very useful stewardship, what we're now doing is we have mapped all of the areas of land that own, not Mark specifically, but Rob as well. But we have now a fantastic Google map of all of those spaces in Frome. And so what you'll see over the coming weeks is councillors fanning out across the locality, looking at each piece of land and thinking about what might its future be. Because you're right, it's like, we could put a huge strain on the ranger team by just kind of taking them over and using them in the way that they use at the moment and just upping the amount of mowing we do. Or we could think more imaginatively about what the future of some of those pieces of land might be. Around biodiversity, around growing things, around community gardens around. There's a whole bunch of things that I think using local knowledge and local relationships, local resources and local networks, we might be able to develop that into a far more exciting prospect than perhaps those pieces of land are used for at the moment. So that's the idea. We'll kind of develop that prospectus, develop that vision. We want to engage our county councillor colleagues in doing that, because it would be great if we could move up the queue, if you like. It's no surprise to us that the Bridgewater deal, of course, there's a local councillor there, I think, might be Bill Revens, who, so not that I was suggesting has got any relationship between those two facts, but it's really, really important, I think, that we get cross-party support for what we're proposing, and that our county councillors are really active in promoting this, and hopefully our MP as well, because there is huge potential in this. We want to use it really imaginatively rather than just kind of take what was on offer in a letter 6 months ago, and use it to create a much more bold vision for the town. So that's where we're at. We'll bring back all of that work we do around the prospectus. We will bring back here, having engaged with Somerset, so we know what's real and what's realistic. And then, we won't be taking any decisions ourselves. All those decisions will come back here so that you and the rest of the town can be involved in forging the way forward. So that's all I've got to say. Any questions that anybody's got, I'm more than willing to answer.
Thanks, Max.
Hopefully.
Thank you. I can see Dawn's got a hand up first.
Yeah, thanks, Max. So besides Bill of Bridgewater, I also think there's other things that we need to look at, in the sense that, like, Bridgewater's Chamber of Commerce has paid staff. So they're a thriving chamber of a town that's not very much bigger than Frome, but it also, that's much easier for them to take on the tourism and the business development. And so maybe there's something to be done to support the chamber in Frome to become a bit more active, in the sense that it could get to a point where it's got enough members that it does have paid staff as well, because then they could take on more of those responsibilities.
So that's a really good idea. I think what we want to use the engagement for is not simply to say what assets do we want from Somerset. We want to use it to say, how do we develop in those themes? How do we develop with people, and how do we engage all of the players in that conversation? And then part of that picture then is Somerset assets, but it's not the be all and end all. And I think that's where we want to be different, perhaps, to some of the other stuff that's been done.
Anybody else with questions for Max at this stage?
Good. Watch this space. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll hand over to Peter then to go to my other shoulder and give us the update on Badger's Hill.
Laura, could you bring up the slide, please? So, as you'll have seen from the report, the target date for completing the repair and improvement project at Badger's Hill has now moved to the end of this calendar year, which we think is realistic, and that's largely down to delays in securing the drawdown of capital funding from the two funding organisations. But what I wanted to talk with you about, just very briefly, are some of the proposals that are coming forward now. And for those on the planning committee, you'll have a much more in-depth insight into this tomorrow night. The plan that you see on the screen there, and I appreciate it's in relatively small scale, shows the existing clubhouse to the left of the picture, and one of the areas that is going to be developed as part of these improvements is an area just to the south of that clubhouse. So the intention now is for the new changing rooms and first aid facilities and officials facilities to actually be developed right alongside the clubhouse. Part of the reason for that is it's felt that that's the most cost-effective solution in terms of the footprint, but also in the short term it enables the existing changing rooms, which are to the north of the pitch, the kind of northeast corner of the pitch, to continue to be used by the football club through the early part of the 24-25 season. And obviously that's a fairly critical thing as far as the football operations are concerned, not just for the men's first team, but also for the women's team. So a planning application's been submitted, and as I say, the planning committee are considering that tomorrow. There's a further slide actually. So the next one. And if you zoom into the bottom picture, so that gives you an artist impression of how the new changing rooms will look. So amongst other things, what it will do is it will significantly improve the appearance of the clubhouse and that part of the football ground. At the moment, that area is just a mess, frankly. You've got old turnstiles, you've got an Elliott building which has been used for storage in the past, and other bits and pieces. So the intention is to tidy up that whole section of the clubhouse, but actually to deliver a new changing room block which is fit for purpose, which can be used not just by the football teams but can also be hired out. And the other thing it will do is it will improve the logistics in terms of the football club's operations, because the players and officials will have easy access to the clubhouse. And the last bit really is that the tendering process is just about to start, and the expectation is that very soon that we will have contractors lined up to actually deliver this, so that when the planning consent is secured, that there will be a kind of smooth transition to construction. I spoke earlier about the CBS, and I think just one other point of information, as I mentioned in the report, that the insurance rent was payable from the 1st of August and has been paid now, and the expectation is that the CBS will start paying rent in October, because they're paying quarterly in arrears for year 2 and thereafter. And that's really all I wanted to say for the moment. Obviously, if there are any questions, I'll take them.
Thanks, Peter. Anita.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. If I've got this right, you're saying that the new changing rooms will be where currently there is like a keep fit operation going on there and things like that. Is that right?
It'll be immediately alongside the gym. So the gym will remain. And of course, in the future, there's an opportunity for those facilities to be used by the gym,
Sure.
Assuming that all parties agree. But there's an added advantage there, of course, in terms of making use of those facilities. And that's a management and operational decision that needs to be made by the CBS and the gym. But clearly the opportunity is there, should the parties wish to take it.
Sure. I was just thinking about the fact that you were saying that where the changing rooms will be, that area can also be let out for hire to other community groups. My only concern about that would be that generally in changing rooms, particularly boys' changing rooms, they can be very smelly and sweaty. Is that still going to be feasible to hire that out to people?
What I was talking about, actually, I should have been more specific about it. It's not the changing rooms that will be hired out, but there's a potential for the first aid room to be available for use for that kind of purpose, but by other groups. So just so that I know what you're saying, Anita.
Thank you, Fiona.
A couple of points. So the first one is, I know you said Andrew Carpenter's coming to the next council meeting, so I'm guessing sort of this is a slight CBS related question, but what is the status of CBS at the moment? I know there have been sort of lots of vacancies on the board. Where is it at the moment, and what are they sort of doing at the moment in terms of community benefit?
Okay, so I think we should allow Andrew to talk in some depth about that at the next meeting. But the CBS board is quorate. New board members have joined the board. They're now able to to get on with the business in a much better way than they could before when they had vacancies. I'm sure that we'll see more on the community side, but I don't want to steal Andrew's thunder for the next meeting.
Yeah, and I guess the other point, and it's actually related to a lot of what we've been speaking tonight, and my brain was sort of whirring as Max was talking, I didn't quite get there. But I think a lot of the sort of discussions we've had tonight are basically about like who we are as a town council, I think, and where there's sort of tension and what our role is going forward and what we see ourselves as. And I don't know whether I'm just sort of, I don't know, just like highlighting that I'm sort of seeing that as like a recurrent theme tonight that I think we need to look at. And I think, and I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, I think one of the things we need to look at is sort of what we've done previously and where it's worked and where it hasn't and what we can learn from that. And I think the football club is, I think there's lessons there and there's also things that we've done right as well. But I also think there's something about how we see, I actually didn't agree with what you said, Anne, about like, I understand that the share shop is a separate entity, but I think sometimes we see ourselves as sort of quite separate as well. And I think actually, I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but I think there's also a way in which actually I wouldn't be against us funding the share shop directly. And I think maybe we should be a bit more open to stuff like that as well, because I think that, I don't know, we can continue growing as a staff body and as a council and get bigger and bigger and bigger, but I don't know that actually gets us where we want to. And I always come back to the fact that I think there's people placed in communities who are better placed to do things than we are. And if we could fund them directly, is that not a bit easier? I don't know. I'm just sort of saying, I think there is something here that we really need to look at and get to grips with as to who we are as a town council and who we want to be going forward, because I think that's where a lot of the tension is tonight.
Well,
I'm not sure about tensions, but I mean, that has been the philosophy of the council. So you just look at the cheese and grain fair for Frome, most of which were implemented in the first instance by the council. Just for the avoidance of doubt, because the previous speaker from over there said, you don't have to buy a football club. Well, we never did buy a football club. We bought a community asset, which we could use in the future. And the football club is separate, and Peter is helping out the CBS, but they actually were the people, again, with our assistance, put in the applications for the grants and were successful. Whether or not they finally emerge will be an interesting point with a change of government. But we just need to make sure that we draw the lines carefully amongst ourselves. We never did buy a football club.
Thanks, Mel. Okay, anything else for Peter? All right.
Peter, are you employing a caretaker for cleanliness of the buildings?
Just so that you know, the day-to-day management of the ground is not our responsibility. We have leased it to the Community Benefit Society, so it's their responsibility to keep it clean.
Save that question for Andrew next month. Okay. In that case, I think we can move on to item number 6, which was some papers we had to carry over from last month because we weren't able to vote on them. This was about the additional meetings of the Oversight Committee and also some changes to standing orders. Did anybody have any questions on any of those, or can I go straight to a proposer? Don't see any questions. I can see Nick proposing. I can see Fiona seconding. I can see an awful lot of councillors waving red cards. Yep. I think we're unanimous on that, Peter. Yeah? Yes. Okay, thank you. So, nearly ready to close the meeting. Just a final reminder that we have a celebration in Victoria Park on Saturday afternoon to mark the 50th anniversary of the formation of Frome Town Council, with lots of community events and music, and I'm told a ceilidh, which will stretch some of us. And our next meeting of the Town Council is 7 p.m. in here on Wednesday, the 4th of September, so not actually that far away. And can I just remind councillors that we do need you to remain for the next little bit of business, which are some very rapid AGMs of some other organisations. Right. Okay, folks, can I ask you to settle down for this meeting, please?